Hello students, this is your teacher Manish, and in continuation with my previous video in which I specifically spoke about evolution of IT. In this part I am going to touch base upon what were the typical problems which were faced by these organizations who had very strong IT departments, okay, or even by the IT companies who were into business and serving these organizations which had strong software applications or which had good amount of business processes automated, okay, and this get applies to last few decades. Okay, so very first I have mentioned is retention of skills. This had always been a problem, you know, when any organization adapted to IT, when they developed a software, they typically developed software using what was very new, what was hot at that point of time in terms of hardware as well as system software, databases and application software. So they would have used COBOL for development during 70s, 80s, would have used RDBMS late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s. RDBMS would have been also of different types, Ingress, Sybase, Oracle. So based on what was in the market at that point of time, they actually, you know, kind of used it. So I remember when I was young, AS400 coders, COBOL programmers were very hot when I graduated, you know, in 90s and was available in job market. So similarly, in every decade there was certain skills which were very top into, which were wanted in the market, okay, and hence whenever this organization adapted to software applications, they of course they had built the teams and they used technologies which were very current at that point of time. And obviously what happened was, with the experience with which these people, you know, gained, they started getting picked up by other organizations, or they started getting opportunities outside of this organization with a higher pay packages, and hence retention of skills became very difficult for these organizations, okay, which adapted to IT at that point of time. Also, technology was changing with such a pace, you know, keeping pace with technological changes also was a huge amount of challenge to such companies, because their core competency was never hardware or software. Probably their core competency was the business which they were doing. So manufacturing, FMCG, or probably you know, healthcare, whatever business they were into, whether it be a public sector or a private sector, their core competency was in those business, and IT was always a service department to them. So although they had skills in-house, it became very difficult for them to keep pace with the technological changes that came into the market. And typically, you know, whether it is a hardware or, you know, system software or RDBMS arenas, you had many versions of system software, RDBMS, which got rolled out with newer features, okay, including the hardware. The hardware every 5 years actually got completely overhauled. There were new servers which came into market, and keeping pace with that technology which was coming into market was very difficult for these organizations. Third most important point was upgrades. So most of the product companies, be it product companies on hardware space or be it product companies on operating system or RDBMS, they supported their their versions until certain time. After that time, they compelled this IT organization to undergo upgrades, And believe me, I have been part of many such projects, and upgrades used to be a huge amount of challenge, because upgrades typically used to be multifold upgrades. So for example, when one decides to upgrade the hardware from some make to another make, or the latest version of that make, okay, so it used to not be only single hardware upgrade, getting the new servers, but when you procure the new servers, you obviously had new system softwares or new operating systems, okay, which had the latest version which worked and on that release of hardware. Now when you changed those operating systems as well, you had to undergo or upgrade the RDBMS. So there was a multifold upgrade, upgrading to new hardware, upgrading to new operating system, or when I say new operating system, new version of operating system, upgrading to new version of RDBMS. And finally, because when you upgrade all these three, you had to spend huge amount of time actually changing your application software, because your application software was based on these three things: the operating system, RDBMS, and hardware. And finally you had to undergo complete change, and there used to be architectural change. So the old version absolutely used to get at times obsolete. You had to redesign everything, you have to do the data migration of old version into new version, okay, and everything you cannot just go live. No, you have to prepare your development environments, your test environments, you test everything, and then you take it to deployment. By the time it gets deployed, you need your users to understand what this new version is. So there were huge challenges in the upgrade kind of projects, okay. So we have seen these three challenges, and they were really nightmare for organization who adapted to IT at that point of time. Fourth obviously is related to top three, which is keeping costs under control. Now IT was always a service department or a service for these manufacturing or FMCG, okay, or healthcare businesses. So these businesses never had core competency of IT. Their core competency was obviously into what business they were, and hence it was very difficult for them to justify the higher costs, okay, for this specific investment, unless they had a good amount of reason in terms of return on investments. Else nobody because just imagine if a ERP is running for last 3 years, and I'm talking about early 90s, mid 90s. I have very strong ERP and it's running for many years. People are used to it, and my business is manufacturing a car. Then I don't want to overhaul my ERP. There is no reason. I would spend a lot of money in actually R&D of getting new models or designing new models of car, rather than overhauling my ERP. So that actually require good amount of justification as to why I want to do that. Okay, obviously things changed after 2000 when things went web based, but at that point of time keeping cost was important. One needs to keep it under control. Time to market, and this was true especially in telecom kind of environment, in service industry, where any organization was rolling out new products, okay, or new services. They want their IT setup to change pretty fast to adapt or to to deliver those products and services into the market. And many a times these legacy applications which were developed, which got evolved for couple of decades, posed lot of difficulty for these organizations to to roll out their product and services fast. Okay, the release cycles of release cycles of development projects was pretty fast. In today's world, we often hear the words like DevOps, and we know that there are continuously deployments that are happening. But in olden days, I'm talking about 20 years ago, I'm not talking about probably many years ago, 25 years ago, when a release used to get planned for a medium size or a big size organization. Release, when I'm talking about release is the software application release, okay, which is going to have new requirements, enhancement in software, critical bug fixes getting rolled out. Okay, it used to be around 3 months to 6 months of timeline, and today nobody will afford to wait for 3 months and 6 months of time to get new enhancements up and rolling. Okay, because of which time to market used to get hampered. Okay, and there was a huge problem. In fact, the next point which I have mentioned here is stovepipe development of application, and this is a very typical problem which I have experienced. Okay, again, and it is very much there in telecom kind of scenario, where telecom companies were continuously getting pressurized by regulatory to kind of open the network. They wanted their network to be shared by private players, which means they also were pressurized to open up their applications for others to raise orders, for others to use it. Okay, and this was a huge overhaul in telecom space, in telecom applications. Also, telecom applications of incumbent companies which typically gave landline services, okay, were mainframe based application. And as telecom evolved, and more advanced services like data services or leased line services, ISDN, okay, or probably the latest mobile services came into picture, telecom applications were developed on altogether new stack. Okay, so the incumbent or the old applications continue to support landline, but for all new wave products, the entire stack of applications, right from provisioning to billing, was developed from scratch. So it became a stovepipe kind of development. So there were a stack of applications. So this is one stovepipe, this is second stovepipe, this is third stovepipe. This entire stack of application actually was developed, was giving service to landline. This became for data services, this became for mobile services. So there were number of applications which came into existence. Okay, and these all applications had varied technologies. So the problem was, if I had to have a one single view of customer. So customer for a telecom company can have data services, can have landline services, and can also have mobile services. Now, because of this stovepipe development, this one customer had 3 customer accounts because they had 3 different application stack. He used to get 3 different bills. The customer used to get followed up by 3 different set of application stack if the bills are not paid. Okay, so all this created lot of issues and posed or increased lot of costs for the IT guys. And these probably were the typical problems which I just wanted to let you know. There are many more, but I found this as the top 5-6 problems which IT folks faced during that point of time. Okay, and they came up with different solutions also at that point of time. For example, retention of skills, keeping pace with technologies, how do they solve those problems? So a manufacturing company in that case started outsourcing the entire development to some IT company, thus going away with the problem of retention of skills. So a manufacturing company, instead of actually maintaining the complete application by themselves, by deploying the people of their own, they outsourced it. So they resolved the problem in this manner, probably keeping pace with technology. Also they similarly outsourced it. And also what did they do? They slowly started getting into managed service space. So what they did, they just outsourced everything to IT companies, like management of servers, upgrades, management of product vendors, okay, and they just became consumers, okay, of IT by outsourcing everything to them. Okay, so this was a kind of evolution slowly, which today gave rise to cloud computing. Okay, and in cloud computing scenario, what I could say, if I have to sum up, okay, with the problems and how this actually help, or what is the current scenario. Okay, so in today's world, anybody can use a self-care platform and procure computing, okay, which could be very elastic. For example, I can procure computing, I can go on increasing whenever I want, I can scale down whenever I don't want computing, I can scale down on storage, I can scale down on processing, okay, and so it is very elastic, and hence okay, I can also pay as I consume. Okay, so this is basically what the current scenario of cloud computing is, which is very attractive to medium segment companies, to small companies, and to startup, because they really don't have to bother too much about skills. They just have to worry about the bare minimum infrastructure of having the client devices like smartphones, or probably workstations and laptops with a Wi-Fi connection, with a strong internet, from where they could actually consume the applications which is sitting in the cloud. They can procure this over self-care platforms. Okay, they can increase whenever they want extra space, whenever they want extra computing power. Okay, and this becomes so easy because they hardly have to spend any capital building up the infrastructure, and they just need to go on consuming, okay, as they progress. Okay, and they can use it as a utility, the way we typically use electricity or water, or telecom services, which are typically metered, and hence we call it utilities. Similarly, the computing can also be used as a utility. Okay, so with this introduction, okay, in last two videos I have actually discussed a lot about evolution of IT, okay, plus the typical problems that IT staff or IT departments of any business setup faced, okay, and what were the solutions which they came up. I think this is good enough a platform for us to start taking a deep dive in terms of what cloud computing actually is. In my next video, I'll come up with a definition of cloud computing and its models based on NIST. Okay, if you like this video, do like it, share it, okay, and do subscribe to my channel. Bye till now.